Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to a phenomenally special Between Takes episode of Missing Frames. I'm your host, Shawn Eastridge. Normally on Missing Frames, we watch all of the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives, but the Between Takes episodes, sometimes we've got to break some big news. Sometimes we've got to do some exciting stuff. And this one is a very, very exciting one because I have the glorious, amazing, and talented Neva Howell back again. And she's got some exciting news for the world that has just been announced at Superman Celebration. But this is the first official interview. Neva, what would you like to tell the world?
I know many people have been asking if Ma and Pa are coming back, and I just wanted to let you know that I am coming back as Ma Kent.
Yeah! And I knew it was going to happen. I was like, there's no way. I remember talking to you about it last year after the first film came out and saying, I think you guys are coming back. There's no way. We love you too much.
I wanted to announce it earlier, but actually it was James said that this would be the perfect place at Superman Celebration to talk about it. So I said, okay, I can wait a little bit longer.
Yes. How are you feeling? How did you feel when you got the official word, the news that you were coming back?
Well, I have to be very careful what I say here. Of course, I was elated that Ma was coming back. People have all kinds of ideas about what James might do in this one, and all I have to say is whatever you were thinking, it's probably not bad.
But I love that. And James is that kind of filmmaker.
That he continues to surprise and to do the unexpected. I think Man of Tomorrow is going to be incredible, and I can't wait for the fans to see it.
I mean, I can't wait to see it. I'm beyond ecstatic for it. And of course, what was so exciting for me is I went and saw a movie last week at Atlantic Station in Atlanta. And we walked outside after the movie was over and there was a big film shoot going on. And I was talking to my wife and I was like, I feel like this could be Man of Tomorrow. And we talked to a few people and they were like, they're shooting Superman here. And that was exciting. And then immediately the next day, all these images started flooding the internet of Lex and his battle suit. And
doesn't he look fantastic? Everything just looks so good. But I noticed they have not shown a single picture of Brainiac.
I know.
I think they're keeping him under wraps. And I think they're not going to show him until maybe the trailer. I don't even know then, but I'm very excited to see what he looks like and how it all looks. But I'm making a prediction that if you loved Superman 2025, you're going to flip over Man of Tomorrow 2027.
Well, just speaking of James and I was a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one when it came out, but I felt, and I don't know if this is the consensus, but I felt each entry in that trilogy got better and better. And it felt like he was getting more and more comfortable in the story he was telling and the characters. And so I'm very, very excited. And now it's just like the hard thing is we're going to have to wait a whole year until we can talk about it.
I know. It's driving me crazy. I want to talk about it so bad, but we can't.
Yes, I was going to say, I imagine not last year, but shooting Superman a year in advance and then having to wait a year, you feel like you're sitting on like just this, like almost like the nuclear codes in a way. And
I know. In every interview, I'm like, oh, be careful. Be very, very careful.
And on top of that, you've been kind of waiting for Superman Celebration to make this big announcement. So you've also had to be cautious about that. The filming was going on.
It was very difficult. Every time, are you going to be back? Well, you don't want to lie, but
right.
You have to kind of divert because you can't there's a protocol to all of that, and you
Yeah.
can't really jump the gun on it. It's just not correct.
I liked what you did there. Jump the gun. I'm sure that was completely intentional.
Jump the gun.
These are also planted in your contract. You have to make little puns like that every so often.
Absolutely. You must make a gun pun.
Yes,
That is
it's a
part of your
necessity.
contract.
Well, let's talk. We can't talk about specifics, obviously, about the story and
No,
specific characters, but let's talk about the family, the Gunn family. I know you've talked with me and you've talked before about the family environment, working with James and the way he kind of nurtures this loving, supportive place where there are no jerks, there are no bad people, but just kind of returning to that and being a part of that family again.
it
Imagine that was a real treat.
it was really like coming home. It had that same feel of coming home to people who appreciate you and value you, and who you appreciate and value, and being able to share that common space where we're creating something very, very, very special. And I feel incredibly blessed to have been able to come back and to be able to enrich the relationships that were already so rich. And everything about it was phenomenal, just phenomenal.
It must feel so exciting because the first time around, I mean, James Gunn is a wonderful filmmaker. You're seeing David and you're like, that guy is nailing it. And you're seeing Pruitt's performance and you're getting to see all these elements, but you really don't know. Nobody really knows until that final film comes out and you see the reaction, you see the finished story with all the effects and the music. You don't really know how it's going to play out and you don't know how it's going to be received. So how did you feel a sense of, maybe with the cast and crew coming back, just that excitement of, we know now that fans are on board, they're excited for what James is doing? Does it feel like the burden has lifted a little bit, or is it still like that pressure of like, all right, we've got to deliver?
I would say the pressure is still there because you want the fans to get what they came for. You want to bring everything you can to each part of the story, but there was a very much more relaxed, I think, settled in to the characters' feeling from everybody, including me. I just felt so anchored in Ma at this point that everything was, I don't want to say effortless because there was a lot of effort involved, but I think it will feel that way and look that way because we were all so committed and connected and aware of our characters now, of where we fit in the DC universe and how everything is coming together. And I think part of that is, I think James, with Supergirl and Lanterns, even everything that he's bringing out, you're beginning to feel this weaving happening, this magical weaving of a universe that I don't think we've seen before.
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. And I know people, and myself included, like, you might think like, yeah, well, the Marvel Cinematic Universe certainly provided a template for that. But I would even argue, to your point, Marvel, when that kicked off with Iron Man, now it's nearly 20 years ago, 2008, with Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, there was kind of a game plan, but not something from the get-go, not something so thought out. I think they kind of had a vague idea of, okay, we're going to get to a big movie like the Avengers, we're going to have these smaller movies, but I think in some ways maybe Marvel walked so James and Peter and the DC team could run, because James is first and foremost a storyteller. And what's been encouraging for me in terms of the interviews he's been doing, that Peter Safran has been doing, is they are so focused on the quality of the storytelling, focusing on that first. And that going into that, if there's a film in this series, if there's a film in this universe, it's going to be good because it's starting with the script. It's starting with the story and not necessarily from a place of, oh, we've got to make 3 or 4 of these in order to get to this much money so we can do this or that. So
I would even believe that James, he, unlike other directors who, like you said, maybe chasing the money, I think he already had those 4 in his, he was already lining them up and had a true storyline through them, or he wouldn't have even said it to begin with. In other words, he wasn't starting with an idea. He had fleshed out the idea in his mind, I believe, all the way to the end. And now he was just letting you know.
as a fan, knowing that James is, I just the snippets of what I've seen of Man of Tomorrow that have come through set photos and other little story teases, you're in for a treat because you understand the kind of person James is. And I just love the ideas of, we already know Superman and Lex are going to be in some capacity colliding in Lex's war suit. We also know they're going to have to put aside their differences potentially and work together to face the greater threat that is Brainiac. I think James was smart with the reveal of Lex's war suit because he knew they were going to be shooting exteriors and that the public was going to get all those photos. So he was like, let me just get out ahead of this and send an official quote unquote photo out before other people start posting
Well, I
stuff.
feel like, Superman, what was it? One of the top 5 films of 2025 or top 4.
Yeah.
What I predict is that Man of Tomorrow will surpass that.
We'll have to wait and see. That's a big claim.
It is. I stand by it. We'll know in 2027, July 2027, we'll know.
So close yet so far. At the least, we have Supergirl in a couple of weeks, which will be such a joy. And, I can see the marketing ramping up for that. And it's just getting more and more exciting. We're seeing more and more from the film. We're seeing more and more interviews with Millie, and we're seeing Jason Momoa out and about.
Oh, I love him. He's perfect for Lobo. And what I love about the way James Gunn works with his characters is they're so specifically different from one another. And Kara, she's coming across very differently than Superman did. But underneath it all, you feel that somehow he manages to let you feel that family connection, even though they're so different in the way that they're living in the world. As far as I can tell from what I've seen in the trailer, she's kind of a little bit of a mess. But
Yes.
there's that underlying love. I even saw that in the little part where he gets her out of the pod.
The ship.
When the ship. When I could feel, the family connection underneath it all. And the love.
He's immediately like, I'm here to help you, which, how it was just so wonderful. It's always, seeing David in that role is, for me as a lifelong Superman fan, it's just like, I don't know how else to describe it except like literally injecting my senses with joy, like just like so happy. And the mannerisms and the friendliness and the awkwardness, but also the don't worry, I'm going to help you. Like, I'm here to help. And all of that is coming through. So I knew Superman would have some appearance in Supergirl that had been teased, but it was so nice to see that little clip and see like, oh, there he is again. There's Superman. There's David. Like, this is great. And then the contrast with Millie's Kara, even just being kind of like a little overwhelmed, and then also asking the important questions like, why is he wearing his underwear?
Like that was James leaning into the diaper man.
I know. I love that.
Was James saying, well, you can't hurt me. I'm saying it here.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's also like that's Superman. That's who's this is not something that James Gunn invented for people to make fun of that. It's like, well, yeah, this character has been that for almost 100 years, almost a century now. So I don't take stock. I don't have time for that nonsense. I am fully pro trunks. I want underwear all over Superman's outfit.
Yeah, I like the red trunks. I like it. I like the way it looks. I wouldn't want it to be different.
Did you see the costume test when they were testing without the red trunks just to see what it looked like? You can tell. You're like, you need it. You really do need it. And I've seen versions of the suit without the trunks that look great, but for this, it just feels so right. And every time I see an image of him, I'm like, it's Superman. It's straight from the page. I don't like, there's no question in my mind. So when I see comments like that, I just doesn't even deserve credence or acknowledgement, because I'm like, you guys, that's Superman.
I'm glad Ma doesn't have to wear any of that. Those suits are not easy. They're not easy to wear. They're not easy.
I know
at all.
Well, you were telling me last year the scene where you filmed, you bring Clark into his bedroom and he's laying on the bed. He's kryptonite poisoning, but you were saying they had to cut the back.
They didn't cut it, but they had to open it because,
right.
The weight of it was difficult, to lay there for a period of time with all that on you or so tight.
All that working out, it has to pay off, because it's not just about looking good for the camera. You literally have to carry the weight of
the outfits. And I imagine that Lex Luthor outfit is quite heavy. I mean, it looks like it would be.
Well, that was so thrilling too, just to see that it's being done practically. We're living in a world where it would be so easy to do that as a special effect.
That's one of James, I think he said before that he would rather have practical any time that he would prefer it.
It generates great buzz for social media when you can actually snap a photo of Nicholas Hoult walking around instead of like, can you imagine if he was wearing some sort of like little onesie where it's like
electrodes on his head? And, yeah.
Right.
Not the same
so
effect.
it just makes a huge difference, and then it generates the buzz. See, James is a smart guy. He knows what he's doing.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Going back to just the inherent absurdity of the trunks, I think you have to be. It demonstrates a real confidence to say, like, well, yeah, we're doing the trunks. Like, it's fine, and it's okay that it's silly. Like, he knows it's silly. He even says in the preview, Superman, like, it's colorful, I know, but that's so people know we're good.
Good. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think there's something inherently silly about these characters in general. A guy who dresses up like a bat and fights crime, like, we've accepted it because they're so ingrained in our culture. But I think to be smart about an approach to storytelling with these characters, you have to kind of acknowledge the absurdity of it while still staying pure to the heart. And I think that's what James does so well, is finding that balance of humor and seriousness.
To me, I had one of my teachers, do you know Stephen Tobolowsky?
Name sounds familiar. Tell me more.
I know it does to everybody. The thing he's been in 500 things. He was in Deadwood and oh gosh, I just saw him the other night on something. But he's most known for the one with Bill Murray, Groundhog Day. He's the guy in the big coat that hugs him every single day. And
yes. Okay.
Stephen is a brilliant teacher. I did an improv in one of Stephen's classes, and afterward he said, that was good, but we were too worried about you. It was supposed to be funny. So when you're playing a comic character and there is that absurdity, you want people to feel when you want them to feel. But overall, they can't be too worried, or they forget to laugh. They forget to keep going in the journey. They bog down and think, I can't go on because I'm too disturbed by what I'm watching. So there's a very delicate balance there that I think James Gunn handles as well as anybody on earth, and maybe better than anybody on earth.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the flip side of that, in terms of walking that fine tightrope, is if you try too hard to be funny, in improv, they're like, you're dead. If you're trying to make the audience laugh purposefully, 9 times out of 10, you're going to fail, because it does have to feel organically character driven. And you do, like you said, you can't go too far in the, like you said, you don't want to be so worried about the character that you're not going to laugh, but you don't want to go so far.
You can momentarily, you can have and James is great at that. It's like, oh no, You get,
Right.
oh, but then a minute later, it's
Exactly.
that's funny.
Exactly.
And he takes you on that journey quickly enough that you don't get bogged. You have the moments of pain and fear and whatever he wants you to feel, but
Mm.
it's a comic book story. So he never
Yes.
forgets that. And I'm not speaking for James, that's just my observation of what he does.
He grew up with a love for these characters in his heart. So again, it's all coming from a place of purity and not mockery. I think what happens is when you start to
Right.
make fun of it, the audience catches on and is immediately like, no, we're not into it. We've seen that before. Thinking about some of the Batman films released in the 90s, I think the reason audiences responded negatively to them is they want to believe in these characters. Like, I think
Yes.
sometimes you can underestimate just how much it means to somebody to see Superman doing what he does, helping people.
And to believe, to be able to suspend your disbelief to go on that journey with him, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's that fine line. And he does it. James Gunn is brilliant at that.
Now, remind me, you told me you have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3,
I
correct?
haven't, no, I haven't. But if that's the one where Rocky,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can.
Yeah. I was going to say,
But
well,
there's the same thing. You never got so bogged down that you couldn't bounce back to the comedy. Am I right?
yes.
Or,
Yes.
you were able to continue the journey, even though it was tearing your heart out that Rocky was being hurt. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking too. That's kind of, speaking to the level of excitement for Man of Tomorrow and where the story might go. I think Guardians 3 was an incredible example of how emotional and dark James is willing to go without losing the heart of it.
exactly.
But for me, personal as a lover of great storytelling, I I think the third one's probably my favorite. And I think a lot of it is because he was willing to take the characters to those places. And I think there is a hint of it. You can see it in some of the set photos of David, like just the
David, his
intensity.
face. We don't know what's happened to him, but you can tell that it deeply impacted him.
Comparing what I've seen of James and what I know he's capable of as an emotional storyteller, I could not be more excited for what he's going to bring in Man of Tomorrow. I also could not be more excited to see you and Pruitt on screen again. And just speak to again, like I don't think this is spoilers to say, but what was it like being back on set with Pruitt specifically, getting to see him again?
like visiting with your best friend. I adore him, and we just we just click. I couldn't be more grateful that it was him that was cast. It could have been someone else, and it just wouldn't have been the same. I don't feel like I would have had as close a relationship as I've had with his pa. His pa was instantly available to me. In other words, as Ma, I could easily look back and think about our relationship, how long we'd been married, and how we finished each other's sentences sometimes, and how we get annoyed at each other. And everything was kind of there, mirrored in him. So it was just like putting on a comfortable robe and sitting down with a nice cup of coffee and talking to a friend you hadn't seen in a long time. So it was wonderful.
I love that you two just get to be like again the intimacy in Superman 2025. Just obviously so many of the best moments in that film were you and Pruitt together, and
Well, thank
the
you.
final scene, of course, has been talked about. And I love that center, that emotional center that the Kents provide, and like just character wise, they're kind of just like they're here in the midst of this insane world and all the crazy things going on, but they're kind of the rock that Clark can come back to when he needs it. And I love that you two get to be kind of like it's kind of similar for your journeys as actors and performers in the midst of like, oh, there's David in his Superman suit. There's a giant Mr. Terrific spaceship parked on the lawn, and there's Krypto running around. Even though I know Krypto's not real, but just let me believe for a little bit that he is real and that he's running around.
He's just about real to me.
I know.
And Murphy, the woman that animates him, she's Krypto to me now. It's like when I see her, I just want to hug her because
she's
she
so
made
good.
Krypto come alive.
I know, she's so sweet. But
She is.
I love that you and Pruitt kind of in the same way Ma and Pa are just like, right in the middle of this crazy world, you two kind of get that relationship and that friendship, and you get to reflect on those special, wonderful human moments that really shape this character of Superman.
And also, Pruitt has a wonderful sense of humor. He makes me laugh all the time.
And that's got to be nice when you're waiting around on set for the next shot to get ready. So,
or sitting in the makeup chair for hours. He's funny. He's just a funny guy.
And any final words you want to leave for the fans who are excited to see you and Pa return in Man of Tomorrow?
I want to thank you for your support and for asking about it and caring about it. And I'm thrilled to be coming back as Ma. And I feel like you won't be disappointed. You will be amazed at Man of Tomorrow.
I'm so excited. Neva, thank you so much for hanging out. I always love seeing you.
Well, you're welcome.